Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 292 of a year of change. Today we are going to get a little bit angry, so prepare yourself. You remember a long time ago, we were talking, I'm trying to think exactly when. Should have looked this up before. A few months ago, France had passed a law saying that a lot of the supermarkets were going to start donating food. That instead of throwing it away and being wasteful, they're going to bundle it up and give it to, food kitchens and, places like that. Just basically so that there wasn't so much waste. There are people that are going hungry and everything is, I thought it was a good idea. So, but just like everybody else, they have shown they can just turn right around and do something very, very stupid in the next breath. What has happened was a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks before Christmas, very shortly before Christmas anyway, 2-3 weeks ago anyway, France passed a law stating that models that are considered to be ultra thin had to get a certificate from a doctor, a medical certificate stating that they were healthy. Now, on the surface, this sounds like a good idea, and we're going to get into a whole bunch of other things, but right now I want to focus on sort of not really the double standard yet, we will get to that, but just, the background to it. The main reason, of course, being that people are constantly saying, it's an unrealistic, ideal of beauty, and I'm not going to go too deep into that because we've already gone through that, and they're trying to, basically, on the surface anyway, trying to turn things around. They do want them to be able to, have something on any picture that has been touched up to say that it has been altered, whether it makes them look thinner or fatter or whatever. But the main thing is they want each of these models to go out and get a medical certificate stating that they are healthy. Now, here's the thing. I view this, I'll get to that in a second. I'm all over the place and I need to sort of stay focused. The problem with something like this is, on the surface, again, you think, okay, you know what? I understand it. It's not a healthy thing to sort of promote. We talked about pro-ana websites and all the other bullshit that goes along with that. And, people do die from being anorexic. And it doesn't help when that is, what they're striving to look like. So on the surface, I can sort of understand it. Then you start thinking. And you try to sort of flip things around. And you think, okay, so aside from the fact, I understand that it's sort of the ultra thin model is what they're looking for. The people that are, very obviously unhealthily thin. So let's just take that into account. Not even regular modeling, not even slim models, anything like that. Just the ultra thin, as they call them. And let's just sort of flip that over and say, okay, in your head you're thinking, okay, well, that's not a bad thing. You want to promote something that you don't want to promote something that's unhealthy. You want to make sure that, there's that social responsibility. But can you imagine what would have happened, what the backlash would have been if it went the other way? And we won't even stop at obese or morbidly obese. We'll go to where I was, super obese at 325 pounds. And not even a modeling thing for any job. And if they said, you are not allowed to do this job until you get a medical certificate stating that you can do it. I'm not talking about things like firefighters and policemen and things like that. Like just things that you really should be in really good shape to do. I don't want, a firefighter that looks like me trying to carry my fat ass out of my bedroom if it's on fire. And in the same vein, I don't want an 80-pound firefighter trying to do the same because it's simply not going to work. What I'm talking about are just regular, even office jobs. And let's face it, the modeling job is probably a little bit easier than the office job. Your job is to look good. That's it. And I understand you have long hours and all the other things, but let's face it, that's the job, is to look good. So aside from all the stress and everything else that goes along with that, if someone was to say, okay, you know what, you aren't allowed to be a model because you're too fat. You need a certificate from a doctor stating that you're healthy enough to work. The world would lose its collective shit. People would be rioting, there would be fires and brimstone and all sorts of shit raining down because we seem to be okay with picking on people that are really the minority. There are a lot of people that are going, and I'm not trying to diminish anorexia or bulimia or anything like that, so please don't think that I'm trying to do that. What I'm trying to say is that it seems to be okay for people to attack them. And we've seen it time and time again. People that, it's either, you're a fat bitch, or you're a skinny bitch, or you're a fat shit, or you're a skinny whatever. What would they call? I've never been called a skinny anything. from anyone, so I don't know what the guy insult is for that. So, I mean, insults go back and forth every which way. But it seems to be easier for us to attack the people that are thin because, honestly, when it comes right down to it, that's what we want to look like. Maybe not super, super thin. There are some people that really do want to look like that, but I think the majority of us just don't want to be fat. So, we're jealous of that. We want that, so it's easy to attack. But if you were to turn that around and say, even if you just restrict it to modeling, if there was anyone that said, no, you're not allowed to model because you're too fat, you need a doctor's certificate to show that you're healthy, then yes, people would go nuts. But no one seems to be doing that with this. And a weird thing is that I see this as very similar to a law that, the law does nothing. Number one, it fines the model. It doesn't fine, the people that are hiring them. It doesn't fine the designers that are designing these clothes or the people that are, anyone else. It's just the models. They can go to jail for 6 months and pay up to 75,000 euros if they don't get the certificate, stating that they're healthy. Well, it's not exactly stating that they're healthy. The actual wording of it is that it needs to be a certificate from a doctor stating that their current BMI, which we know is already flawed to begin with, I'm trying to think of the exact wording of it, but the BMI is consistent with the practice of modeling. That's the wording on it. Now, what that basically means is that you can say, no, they're 6'2", they're 72 pounds. That's consistent with the practice of modeling. There's no restriction there. They wanted to put something in there to have a minimum BMI. That anything below that, you weren't allowed to do it, which, of course, people went apeshit over, which they rightly should. I know it's unhealthy, being below a certain point, but it certainly didn't go the other way. They wouldn't say, there's a maximum BMI before you can actually do any modeling, because, again, people will go nuts. But I view this law a lot, sort of in the same vein as, not being able to bring toothpaste on an airplane. It's a law that, number one, I don't even know how they're going to enforce it. Number two, does absolutely nothing. You don't think that people are going to be able to just go to a doctor and say, no, I'm healthy, I'm fine, everything is good. And yes, they're going to find a way around it. They're just going to be able to get something. And then, of course, the politicians are standing there going, oh, we've done a good thing. We're promoting health. We don't want to really push forward this unhealthy image onto people. And the problem is, though, is that they're not doing anything about obesity at all. Because, let's face it, the majority of us are obese. And there's 3 times as many of us dying as those that are having, anorexia or bulimia, something like that. So if they're trying to measure, this isn't turning into a pissing contest, but if they're trying to measure risk and, what is healthy and what isn't, then if they're going to do one, they've got to do the other. They should say, yes, there's a certain range. However, when you get into that, then you start going on a very slippery slope. Because if you're starting to say, okay, you can't be a model unless you are within this weight range or this BMI range, then you're restricting people. And it's very, very close to just being discriminatory. So it's like, well, you're not allowed to do this job because you're too thin. You're not allowed to do this job because you're too fat. Well, then we might as well start working on height. So you're too short. You're too tall. You're too beardy. You're not beardy enough. You have too much hair. You have too little hair. You have too many teeth. You don't have enough teeth. And although overall the modeling, what would I call it? Business, I guess. The modeling business is really one where it's, this is what's currently attractive. This is what we want to promote. So chances are, if you're just like patchy hair and no teeth, probably not going to be a model anyway. But you could if you wanted to. You could try for it. You wouldn't be legally restricted from doing it. And that's what I think the problem is. The thing is, aside from, the fashion industry, there's a word I was looking for, industry. Aside from the fashion industry that has sort of balked at this, no one's really complaining. And if it's the first time you've heard of it, then that sort of goes to show you this has sort of gone under the radar a little bit. But again, I understand that on one hand, this is where those opposing forces come into play. Because on one hand, I'm thinking, it's good. You don't want to promote an unhealthy lifestyle. But they should be doing it for the people that are too fat as well. Like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to do a Calvin Klein. There we go. That's good enough. The first thing popped in my head was, Back to the Future. It's the only name I know. There's no way I'm ever going to do that. Okay? So it's not a matter of them saying, legally, you're not allowed. It's just, no one's going to do that. No one's going to hire me. No one wants to see that. But the fact is that I completely lost my train of thought on that. Now I'm thinking about time travel. It's not working. Anyway, the main reason why I sort of wanted to bring this up, it doesn't really have anything to do with what we've been sort of looking at over the past few weeks, actually, but where we're sort of focusing a little more on exercise and things like that. That risk of going, this is what I'm trying to look like. This is, I want to lose the weight and then I want to get into shape and start looking like this. So it kind of related. But the main thing that I wanted to sort of bring up was the fact that on one hand, you have this, okay, yes, I understand they want to promote health. So they say, this is the reason why they're doing this. So yes, having a cutoff that way, I understand it. Don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. But they aren't doing it the other way. They need to have that cutoff. And then, of course, on the other side, then I'm thinking, well, no, because then you're just basically blocking people out and saying, no, you can't do this by law because you're too fat or you're too thin. In which case, then that's just as bad as someone saying, well, you're not allowed to do this because you're not attractive enough. This is the image of beauty that we want to promote, so this is what we're going to promote. If it's fat on one end and thin on the other, then fine. Then that's the image that they should be allowed to promote. The problem is, of course, is that I think part of the reason why they're looking at doing this is that, again, no one really takes any responsibility for themselves. We don't look at something like an image in a magazine or on TV or online or something and say, well, that's what I'm going to strive for. I'm never going to be able to reach it, though, because it's unrealistic. They should stop doing that. That makes me feel bad about myself. Well, no, it has nothing to do with us at all. And instead of us looking at ourselves and going, you know what, I can say personally, don't know about the rest of you, but I can say personally, I have eaten like shit for the majority of my life. It's really only been the past few months that I've been improving how I've been eating. I mean, you try diets off and on, we've all done it, sort of yo-yo back and forth, and then you lose 10 pounds, and then you gain 20, and then you lose 5, and you gain 20. But it's my responsibility. I can't blame TV, I can't blame McDonald's, I can't blame restaurants, I can't blame anyone but myself. I have to go, I have to buy the food, I have to bring it home, I have to eat it, and then pass out with glaze all over me, crying in my sleep. Which we've all done at some point. And excluding all the psychological issues that sort of go along with any eating disorder, whether it's anorexia or whether it's, I still feel weird calling obesity an eating disorder, but technically it is. Foregoing all those psychological aspects that sort of go along with that, whether you're an emotional eater or, you have something else, it's trying to think of what my point was. I completely lost it. It just went poof out of my head. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Shit. I hate that. Because now I was going to wrap things up. I was going to have this very succinct. I was all angry and got my dander up. That's my fighting. That's how I fight. It's just like that. Where are we now? Okay, we're a little bit over 10 minutes. Oh, God. Anyway, I've completely lost what I was going to say. It doesn't take much. That's all it is. So what was I saying? I was saying that regardless whether you're too thin or you're too fat, anyway, I've probably said it already. It borders on discrimination. And again, a lot like saying, we haven't had any terrorist attacks. Well, it's not because you have to take your fucking shoes off at the airport. That's not what caused it. There we go. That's what I was going to say. We can't blame anybody. There we are. I can't blame anyone but myself. I'm the main reason why I am the way that I am. And there are contributing factors. We've talked about that, whether it's our environment, whether it's, the cost of food, which we discussed a couple of weeks ago. There are contributing factors to it, but at the end of the day, we are the ones that are responsible for it. And we've learned over the past few months that, at the end of the day, we are in control of it because we have lost weight. We've made progress all the way through this. It's been very, very slow. We've had our ups and downs, but overall, we are making progress. So if you were to if you're going to take a group of people and say, no, you aren't allowed to do this because you're too thin or you're too fat. I mean, as long as you have it on both ends, then I don't mind. If you're saying, no, you need to be a healthy weight, you need to be within this range. But then again, that sort of impinges, that's not what, never mind. That interferes, there we go, with people's right to be able to just, although as unhealthy as it may be for us to be, for me at my worst, super obese, outweighing, John Candy and Chris Farley and everybody else, it's still my right to do it. I have the right to be as fat as I want to be or as thin as I want to be. And I don't think anybody should be blocked and say, you're not allowed to do, some jobs, obviously, if you physically can't do the job, Like, I would have no qualms about someone saying, no, you can't join the army, you can't be a police officer, you can't be a firefighter, because you're too fat, you're out of shape, you're not going to be able to do what needs to be done, because you're saving people's lives. I understand that, I agree with it, and give me a petition, I will sign off on it. But when your job is something like an office job, or a model, to say to someone, you're not allowed to do this legally, because you aren't what we would classify as healthy. So what we'll do, we'll put in this little bit of a law that is very easily gotten around, so that you can go to any doctor and say, just write me a note saying that I have this, and they're like, okay, well, yeah, you're fine. And yes, it is consistent with the practice of modeling, because it doesn't matter. You could be 12 pounds. It's so consistent with modeling because they're all super, super, super thin. But to be able to start doing that, then you start restricting people. And although I mean, we've talked about, like, sort of, no, what's the word? Blocking, preventing, banning. There we go. Banning junk food in schools and things like that. I am for that, because you're not infringing on anyone's rights at that point. You're just saying we are removing a choice that you can get outside of the school. For this school, we're going to put in healthy foods. We're going to actually have proper meals. If you want to buy it here, it's going to be healthy alternatives. When you go home, eat whatever you want. You're not our problem after that. But while you're here, we're going to provide healthier alternatives. They do that with hospitals as well. I can't remember which hospital it was that we looked at that decided, you know what, when people are here, I don't care what they eat when they're home, but when they're here at the hospital, they are getting lots of fruits and vegetables. They are going to be eating healthy. They're going to have proper portion sizes. If you're hungry, then you're hungry. You can go home and you can wreck yourself then. But while you're here, this is our responsibility. And I think that is a good thing. But when you start sort of blocking people off and saying, well, now legally you're not allowed to even do this job, which, let's face it, is a useless job anyway. You're not allowed to pretend to look good because you're too thin or you're too fat. If you're going to promote health, then fine, promote health. I don't mind that. I support it 100%. But don't just block people off and then go, there, we're promoting health now, and this is going to make things better, because it's not. They're going to get around it. It's not. We will be very, very surprised if we ever hear of anyone ever having to pay a fine or going to jail or anything else because of this law. And I understand it doesn't affect North America. I mean, it's only in France right now, but they passed it on, it was about a week before Christmas that they did this. And really, I mean, there's been no news on it or anything, but it's another one of those, it's sort of symptomatic as to what our problems are, where we want to blame someone else. So fine, yes, let's put a tax on the skinny people. This is essentially what it is. That you're too thin, so no, you have to pay the price for it. You know what? It's not healthy. No, they shouldn't be that thin. You should be trying to help them, but it's still their choice. And I don't think anybody should be blocked legally by doing any job that they're physically able to do and mentally able to do and everything else because they don't look right. This is really, then at that stage, then you're going to start going, okay, well, you can't do that because you're not black enough, or you're not white enough, or you're not, I already had tall and short and fat and thin and everything else. And any other number of things that you're in there. So once you start sort of saying legally you can't do this because of your appearance, and that's what this is based on. This isn't based on health. Although they say it's going to be, it's trying to do this so that they have to have a certificate saying that they're healthy. They're going to get around it. And as long as it matches with the rest of the modeling industry, then how can you compare that? It's so ridiculous. It's just, anyway, I've already gone through that. So I won't go through it again because I'm going to start repeating myself. But I'm going to put a link down below in the description just to the main story. And although it's not in French, so don't worry, you're going to be okay. And just, there are a few comments here and there that are on the story itself, but I think there's only 3 or 4. And some, of course, they're a bit snippy, as they usually are. But it's really difficult to try to sort of get behind something like this because, again, on one hand, you think, yeah, it's kind of a good idea, and then you start really thinking about it going, no, it's just show. There's no substance to it whatsoever. It's a stupid law. They've wasted a tremendous amount of time doing this. If they really want to promote health, then do something useful. Don't do shit like this so that people can go, oh, well, then I don't feel quite so bad because I don't look like he does, and I don't have the muscles, and I'm not thin enough, or anything else. So, and this does go, the majority of the sort of waif-thin models that we think of are women, but this goes for men as well. There was a thing a while ago. I think it's a story actually related to the other story that you can probably link to, that I guess the male models are getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner as well. Everyone's getting super, super skinny. Meanwhile, the rest of us are getting fatter and fatter and fatter. So they don't really accurately represent what we look like, but I think for a lot of us, we look at that and go, I want to look that way. And it's fine to say you want to look that way. When it gets to a point when you start hurting your health because of it, that's when we need to start worrying. But anyway, that's a topic for another story. But for right now, I am going to leave this video here. I think I ranted long enough. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. And in the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video.